It was found in the glove box right after an oil change, a small black plastic cylinder about 4 inches long with a flat piece that slides in and out with a bit of resistance. Could be something that came off the car, or maybe something a tech accidentally left behind. Any idea what this might be? This is called a glove box damper. It attaches to the glove box door and controls how it opens, slowing it down so it gently drops open instead of slamming down. These are common in many cars and are often overlooked during maintenance. People sometimes remove or unhook the damper when replacing the cabin air filter, since the glove box usually needs to be lowered or taken out for access. If it's not reattached afterward, the glove box may fall open too quickly or feel like it's broken. This little girl was photographed in the 1860s with her dog. What is she holding in her lap? This is a flutina accordion. Many of these flutina accordions were imported into the United States and were common photographers' studio props. This imparted a touch of culture to the sitter, hence the many tintype, ambrotype, etc. images of men and women with their hands poised over flutinas, which they may or may not have actually played. Many of the images date from the 1850s through the American Civil War period, 1861 to 1865. It was given as a housewarming gift, simple, elegant, and a little mysterious. About 6 inches long and 2 inches tall, it's a mix of warm wood and cool marble. The top has 2 small semicircle dips, just enough to hold a pinch of something. It even came with a tiny spoon. Any idea what it's meant to be used for? This is a salt and pepper pinch pot. Instead of shakers or grinders, this simple double-sided dish is designed for cooks who like to season by feel. You pinch a bit of salt from one side, pepper from the other, perfect for those who cook intuitively. It was found stuck to the magnet after pulling the transmission pan on a 2002 Subaru Outback with 160,000 miles on the odometer. Hundreds, maybe thousands of tiny steel beads, each smaller than 0.3 millimeters, were clinging to the magnet. The transmission runs fine, and multiple mechanics confirmed there's nothing inside the transmission that looks like these. So where did all those steel beads come from? Any idea what this is? This is steel shot peen. It's used in a process called shot peening, where small spherical media, like these steel balls, are blasted at a metal surface to create compressive stress and improve fatigue strength. It's a common treatment in the aerospace and automotive industries to extend the life of metal components. If you're seeing loose shot like this, it usually means the manufacturer did a poor job of shot recovery, the process that collects and recycles the media after peening. That can be a red flag for quality control, especially in precision applications. It was found at a grandmother's farmhouse in Arkansas, likely 70 to 80 years old, all solid wood, a cloche-like shape with a knob on top that moves a carved wooden disc up and down inside. No springs, no moving parts beyond that. Just smooth, worn wood that shows it was used often. The disc is fixed to the knob, so when you press down, it compresses or flattens something underneath. What do you think it was for? This is a butter mold. Before butter came prepackaged in sticks or tubs, people used molds like this to shape freshly churned butter into uniform blocks or decorative designs. The carved pattern inside the mold would press into the surface of the butter, often featuring flowers, animals, or simple geometric shapes. These molds were especially common in the 19th and early 20th centuries, when homemade butter was more typical in rural households. It came from a dentist's office, about 3 inches long, made of sturdy plastic. Not flimsy, but not metal either. It doesn't seem like something meant to go inside the mouth. At least not directly. No moving parts, just a solid piece. Any idea what this was used for? This is a tube squeezer. You slide it onto the end of a tube, like toothpaste, mayo, ointment, or even caviar, and twist or push it up as the contents get used. It helps squeeze out every last bit without having to wrestle with a crumpled tube. A simple but clever tool that saves money and reduces waste. It was found in the shed, heavy, roughly the size of a watering can, and definitely looks handmade. At first glance, it seems like some kind of awkward funnel or watering device, but it's built with a kind of purposefulness that makes you wonder if it had a more specific use. Given that the previous owner worked in landscaping and management and had a tendency to hang on to tools from all sorts of jobs, it's possible this was used to pour or mix chemicals, fuel, or maybe even something like fertilizer. What do you think this heavy old thing was used for? This is a vintage galvanized steel oil funnel can. It was commonly used in barns, on tractors, or around the farm for pouring oil or measuring other fluids. Mechanics and tinkerers kept them handy in the garage, and today they often show up in altered art projects or as props for rat rods and restoration displays. It was found in an old building that once served as a post office, a long metal triangle-shaped box about 18 inches in length and 3 to 4 inches wide on each side. There's no obvious way to open it, though it could just be seized up with rust. What's odd is that there isn't just one, there are about 50 of them. What could these heavy triangle boxes have been used for? This is a vintage brine canister used in ice cream trucks. These were filled with brine, then frozen solid and slid between ice cream barrels to keep everything cold during delivery. Companies like Waltham, known for making ice cream trucks, used these before modern refrigeration took over. Heavy, efficient, and a clever way to keep things chilled on the move. It was found in an old house near the Ontario-Quebec border, a cast-iron piece featuring a woman's head wearing a hat. The bust is finely detailed and riveted to a notched arm that pivots like a lever. One side of the base is stamped with CF around an anchor, and the other side reads Brevet SGDG, a French phrase meaning patented without government guarantees, often seen on pre-World War II items made in France or French-speaking regions. The notched end makes it seem like a kind of mechanical control, possibly for a stove or fireplace flue damper, but the use of a woman's head as a handle is unusual. Maybe it was decorative or symbolic or reused from something else. The casting is clean enough that it probably wasn't just scrap. Any idea what this might have been used for? This is a shutter holder. It's designed to keep exterior window shutters open by securing them to the wall. Often made of metal, these holders prevent shutters from slamming shut in the wind and are commonly seen on older homes or decorative shutters. It was found in a bag of parts that came with a used trail-a-bike, a one-wheeled tag-along bicycle for kids. The piece isn't mentioned in the instructions, and since the bike came from a thrift store, there's a decent chance it didn't originally belong to the bike at all. The original manufacturer, Adams, has gone out of business, so getting exact part matches is tough. Any idea what this could have come from? This is the internal mechanism of a typical bicycle bell. It mounts on a vertical axle, and when the rider flicks the thumb lever, it rotates or strikes a gear-driven arm. The metal ridges or rings on the plastic piece inside hit the inner surface of the bell housing, creating that classic ding-ding sound to alert pedestrians or other riders. It was found among the belongings of a well-traveled relative who recently passed away. No clear origin, no markings, and no real clues. Just this unusual object. It's metal, maybe brass or bronze, and shaped somewhat like a cooking tool. An oval-shaped ball sits in the middle and rattles loosely when moved. The family tossed around a few guesses, maybe a kitchen utensil from another country, or possibly something ceremonial or decorative. But the truth is, no one really knows what it was meant for. Any idea what this could be? This is a Fijian cannibal fork. These unusual multi-pronged utensils were traditionally used in Fiji during ceremonial feasts in the 18th and 19th centuries. Because high-ranking individuals were considered too sacred to touch human flesh with their hands, these forks allowed them to eat in accordance with ritual protocols. The number of prongs and the intricacy of the carving often reflected status or tribe. Let's go back in time a bit. Discovered around 1640 by Dutch explorer Abel Tasman and visited by Captain Cook in 1799, the Fiji Islands became a permanent settlement for European missionaries and whalers during the early 19th century. But the customs of the native tribes freaked out our intrepid Occidental travelers when they realized that Fijians were actively snacking on each other. Soon the Fiji Islands became known back in Europe as the infamous Cannibal Isles, while billions of legends and horrific tales were brought back to the old continent. However, some explorers also tried to render as objectively as possible the realities of the Fiji tribes through their reports, and soon with photographs. Decades after decades, anthropologists and archaeologists gathered evidence to decipher the function of Fiji cannibalism. Fijians were not actually feasting on their own members. It was exophagus, which means the human they would consume the flesh of didn't belong from their community. The dreaded enemies of other tribes were the main courses. Eating your nemesis was purely motivated by revenge, a public humiliation ritual which became, for centuries, one of the strongest cultural norms of the territory. Once bitten to death, the victim of the assault was dismembered and cooked on a fire pit and then distributed to the members of the tribe. But the Fijians had their own sets of values, and if eating human flesh was not prohibited and morally wrong, other behaviors or actions were restricted. The head of the community, chiefs and priests, were considered too holy to touch food. For this reason, attendants to the ceremony had to feed them with those precious wooden forks with which they would pick the roasted flesh. Considered one of the most sacred relics of each tribe, these forks were kept in the spirit house and were only used during cannibal ceremonies. If these practices stopped during the second part of the 19th century when missionaries converted the natives to Christianity, some stories still seem very vivid. The most famous one surrounds a 19th century Ratu chief named Udra Udra, one of the last cannibals of northern Viti Levu. Udra Udra allegedly kept a stone for every enemy he tasted the flesh of, a number that oscillates according to the sources between 827 and 999, which makes him the most prolific cannibal ever documented. These stones are nowadays still surrounding his grave in the town of Rakiraki. My friend bought a house and moved in last December. The previous owner was an elderly widower who passed away in the home 2 years before it went on the market, and my friend bought it from her daughters. It seems like she lived there for a good portion of her life. The house was built around 1958, and the kitchen cabinets are probably original to the house. Since moving in, my friend has found a few interesting things left behind by the previous owner, but neither the realtor nor he could figure out what they might have been used for. One of the items hangs on the side of a cabinet, right above the double sink in the kitchen, just in front of a window. Our best guess is that it might have been a soap holder, but it was empty when we moved in and still is. Just dust inside. The bowl looks handmade and is made from a heavy, solid piece of wood. Any idea what this tool might have been used for? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop your answer in the comments below the video.